Hello, my name's Justin Capalbo, and hello, my name's Justin Capalbo, and thank you for joining today. I'm really sorry I wasn't able to be there in person, but I'm very thankful for the organizers for allowing me to record this presentation for you. My presentation is entitled "Accessibility Through Makerspaces: Designing Educational Aids for the Visually Impaired." So I just wanted to start out with introducing myself. My name is Justin Capalbo, and I am an assistant professor of digital media production at Manhattanville College. We're located in New York, about 30 minutes north of New York City. I have an MFA in photography from Long Island University, and my career has kind of taken a strange path. I was a fine artist for a long time, commercial photographer. Um, Went back for my MFA, started teaching, and now, as you'll see with this, I've kind of ended up in a new sort of position. So I just wanted to talk about their transition for a second, just to kind of familiarize you a little bit with what my work is, and then that should help with the rest of the presentation. So before joining Manhattanville, I was an adjunct for 4 years throughout the New York City metro area. I taught in MFA programs and various undergrad programs in the arts, mostly visual art, sculpture, drawing, photo, just really anything on the kind of visual art front. A tenure track opportunity opened up in Manhattanville in their communication and media department, and I was hired. I kind of helped shape the position a little bit to fit myself, and kind of do a lot more digital art. And we've now actually started a new major itself, the digital media production. I teach photography, graphic design, motion graphics. I do our study abroads, Japan, Tokyo. We do photos all around the world, and design thinking courses. So, design thinking was the last thing I mentioned. I just wanted to introduce the topic in case you don't know. Design thinking is a process that is spreading through a lot of different schools, and it particularly is related to our makerspace that I'm going to be talking about. The design thinking process is sort of a scientific method for the humanities. Um, we try to bill it to students as not this kind of rigid thing they need to follow, but I found that it's really helpful for students when we're in the creative process, whether it's in solving a design problem through graphic design, whether it's through solving a problem through product design or working in the fabrication space. Being able to have some sort of process to grasp onto really helps them kind of move it along, right? So this process starts with empathy, and it's really an empathy-based design practice. We want to really empathize with our users, make sure that we're designing and really know what our users need. And one of the main points of this is some of the kind of mistakes I made early on in this process, and making a lot of assumptions without actually reaching out to the actual user, right? Then we want to kind of define the problem, right, and make sure that we have building out different kind of personas, different pain points, challenges, things that may come up. And then we go to a kind of an ideation stage. We have a big open space with tons of post-it notes, and every idea is a right idea, right? We just put everything up on the board. And then we start kind of prioritizing and grouping up these ideas, right? So sometimes we're doing things in person with post-it notes. Sometimes we're using different software like Mural to kind of work as different teams and groups. But we start ideating all these kind of ideas. Then we move on to the prototype stage, right? In my case, a lot of these prototypes are physical or kind of digital media, right? Um, and it's something that we can kind of really iterate quickly. And then we start testing them, right? And during that testing process, one of the great things about design thinking is that we're able to say, okay, this didn't work, right? Let's try to address the reasons why it didn't work. And let's go back to the ideation stage, right? We always save all our post notes, right? We save our mural boards. We can look back and see, okay, if was there another path now that we have all of this information through the prototype and testing stage to recognize, is this something that we should go in a different direction with? And so I had become familiar with design thinking. Our school had really opened a new design thinking center and was starting to, it was kind of, its influence was kind of making its way around the School of Arts and Sciences. And in I'd say maybe February, March of 2019, I was approached by the provost for design thinking to help create and manage a makerspace on campus. My department had a couple 3D printers, 3D scanners, and some basic kind of things. But with the idea with the budget, we could really kind of build out a space. So I spent the summer ordering, setting up equipment, kind of testing everything out, really training myself on some new tools that I hadn't used before. And we had a makerspace, right? And our makerspace currently has believe 8 3D printers, we have laser cutters, vinyl cutters, VR headsets, sewing machines, and we're really focused on everyone in the community, whether it's community partners outside of the school. We have a lot of K through 12 schools come in, faculty, staff, admin, students, everyone can come in. And we think about kind of really intuitive things. That's been my main real push, right? Is to say, um, can we create with really intuitive tools, right? So if students already know how to, fifth graders are, really strong at Minecraft skills, let's say, right? They can build something in Minecraft. I can paste it out and use software to then 3D print it, right? Figuring out lots of ways to make it accessible. So we launched our program fall of 2019, right? About late August, and started fostering this community of makers. Things were going great, right? A lot of students, a lot of energy. The administration was really behind it. And we really were like, okay, let's just start, keep building, building, building. And then COVID happened, right? Something that, affected all of academia in the whole world, right? But from our point of view, we really were trying to figure out ways, we could take care of ourselves, but also start figuring out, how can a makerspace exist when, we can't be there all the time, right? We can't hold classes in it. We're about 30 minutes from New York, right? So for those of us, I know some on the panel are from New York, um, it was a real tough time in that kind of March, April space, right? And so we started figuring out ways we could use this space, especially because we kind of felt helpless, right? We had all this energy and all of a sudden we're just kind of stuck in our apartments and not able to make things. So my mom, at the time, was a nurse for 41 or 42 years. And her hospital in New York was designated in about Western Long Island was designated to be the COVID kind of hospital, right? So she every day had to kind of get fully dressed up, spend a 12-hour shift, and it was really early on, and it was just everyone from the city, the kind of severe cases were brought into her space. And so she was been saying and telling me that there was a lot of supply issues, right? And we were trying to find something to do. So what we started working on was this kind of collaborative project. So if you are someone who's familiar with, the photo world, a lot of kind of design, product design kind of things, we're often thinking about in the commercial sense, trademarking everything, making sure everything's really locked down, right? But in the makerspace, we're all just sharing ideas, right? And iterating idea on idea on idea. And so Eric Cederberg was a designer from Europe who was able to create these kind of face masks, right? So for these kind of face shields for all of our, different people that need them in the health sciences, things like that. And I took that little kind of bracket he had made, started iterating and started experimenting. There was no kind of shield material around, so we started getting kind of overhead projector little pieces of film, right, from Staples that we could find, and we started assembling these, right? I didn't have access to the space, right, because again, all these colleges kind of locked down. So I took all of our materials, took all the 3D printers home with the admin's approval, and in my little one-bedroom apartment just had 8 3D printers just constantly running out face shields. And really rapidly, we were able to donate 400 shields to the local hospitals and kind of show that this makerspace, we could start kind of, creating change with it and helping to kind of activate the space. Luckily, I was able to do some kind of publicity, like local news and news in New York and stuff. And that helped get a lot of donations to kind of build the space even bigger. So when we came back, kind of in a half, remote classes, but my makerspace could still, be populated. We had a lot of ideas. So here's some of the images just of the face shields, and kind of in the process of being 3D printed and us prototyping them, and then me talking kind of about the process with people. So after this whole process, it was really helpful because people got to see around campus what we could do, right, and what was possible. So Professor Jeffrey Kidna teaches in music production, and he reached out to me and had a design problem he really wanted to try to solve. So we have a large visually impaired population on campus, and he often has visually impaired students in his music production classes. And so they're working on different waveforms and trying to experiment with seeing how sound works, right? And so what he would always do is use paper and glue to make these kind of tactile waveforms. This wasn't really feasible though on remote and on Zoom, and we were trying to figure out like how do we, get this working. Our institution didn't really have a robust remote kind of class or synchronous or asynchronous or anything really yet, right? We were really an in-person school, and we were kind of learning and building that out, right? So he came up with, saying, I really want to try to figure out a way to make this, and how can we do it? So we started with the 3D printers, and if anyone's 3D printed before, it's not necessarily the best at little flat kind of things, right? So we quickly realized, okay, this isn't working. And we kind of went through that design thinking method, and we were thinking, okay, what do we need to do? We really need to empathize, right? So our first stab at it, we said, okay, well, let's reach out to the director of Center for the Center for Student Accessibility, Alyssa Campbell Carmen. And Alyssa was great and was able to really say, okay, this is what I think from working with these visually impaired students, it would go through. And, it was hard for us because we didn't have students on campus at this point, right? So we're just iterating and having weekly meetings over the summer and really trying to develop these prototypes. And so these are some of the first prototypes we've been working on. And you can see that there's a lot of different variation of technique, right? So the one, again, hopefully my mouse is showing right now, but the one that's about here, 3D printing is an additive process, right? So we're building things up. Laser cutting, subtractive process, right? We're taking things away. So at first we thought, well, we can take away all of the information except these waveforms, and they can kind of be raised. But Alyssa helped us understand that, that was just going to be a texture overload, right? It ended up just being so textured. So we said, okay, well, we don't have to do it all in one shot, right? We can cut out certain things, laser cut, paste them onto other things. And we started just kind of experimenting with all of the waveforms in the textbook, right? And trying to make sure that we had these all ready to go. So one of the things we started kind of focusing on was we should probably reach out to a student, right? This is something that we need to make sure that we're, we're really kind of, we're anticipating and expecting what the student needs, but then that's not really truly making user-based design. So we said, okay, well, what can we do? This student lives out of state, and we mailed them all over the summer, and they gave us a lot of great feedback, right? And this was a really big lesson, making sure that, we're not making these assumptions, right? And, I don't know what the experience of a visually impaired student is, right, when interacting with these objects. So one of the things was that there wasn't a way to understand the orientation, right? So I could visually see that it needed to be this orientation and then feel around. But if there are these organic forms that are kind of complex, there was no way to really figure that out. The second thing was looking at how do we make sure that when you're moving your finger on it, the edges don't cut you, the edges don't hurt, right? So we started really kind of thinking about like, how do we navigate this, right? So we started making more iterations and more iterations, right? We started thinking about, okay, for orientation, we can print out Braille, right? And then the student would be able to kind of figure out, okay, I can read that this is this proper orientation. This is how I need to follow along. And then we went through all the figures and all the tables and started saying, okay, well, let's title all of them so they can really understand where they need to be, right? And so you can see some shoddy glue work by me. But we started building it up, right? We started experimenting with a lot of different forms and a lot of different kind of spaces here. And some of these things, right? We were able to kind of have some demos with the students and see how they would follow along with the actual audio, with the forums. But they started working out. We started playing around with the size too, right? How much space do we need? How much negative space do we need to kind of before we have this specific form? So we started experimenting. And here's a little video of it cutting out. Pardon for the only video I had was a former Instagram post. But you can see us kind of starting to cut out and experiment and see what's going on there. And so the process for this was fairly simple, right? So Professor Kidda gave me all of his textbook designs and things he would need. I went in Adobe Illustrator and kind of just traced them over and created vectors of them. And I took those vectors, made them SVG files, and I sent them to our laser cutter. So laser cutters take an SVG file, and they basically just go to work, right, and start cutting. They can cut, they can engrave, and they can score, right? So through this combination of techniques, we were able to kind of subtract from the wood something that was usable. So the one big lesson we learned, right, was really that user-centric design. I know this sounds obvious, but we really need to connect with the user, right? Even connecting with the disability support services didn't get us exactly the real kind of core feedback we needed. And so sometimes we have to kind of innovate a little bit, right? Mailing it out there, coming back and forth. But it was really successful, right? And so it was something that the students were really thankful for because it was able to help them follow along over Zoom, right? Jeff Kidda could say, okay, go to figure B. This is a sine wave. Hear the sound, and they're tracing their finger along with it, right? And that would have been something that would have been lost over Zoom. So another thing that's kind of helped through this process is that by working with this visually impaired body of students, it's helped with other things on campus, right? So over the summer, I kind of managed this pre-college program for visually impaired students. So all across New York State, the Commission for the Blind sends students to our campus, and they have a whole summer session, right? It's about a month and a half long. And I organize about 13 different faculty who all do different kind of lessons, and we kind of give them a first-year program experience to help them just for overall retention rates when they go off to whatever college they go to, helping them already kind of have a foot in the door, right? And this experience with the laser cutter and these tactile waveforms helped us really kind of empathize better and have a better understanding for this pre-college program, how to best prepare the students, right? So future focused, some paths forward. It was really accessible for music waveforms. I really am now trying to look at kind of more like hard sciences and things, right? So looking at bio and chemistry and other areas where we can kind of create. And just like I was able to iterate from the face masks, right? I want to be able to put these out and have people iterate and explore for their own uses, right? So we're really trying now to create some packages to put up just on all those kind of free things, Thingiverse, all these free laser cutting, 3D printing resources, and have people be able to use these and kind of iterate from there. So we're really excited, and we're looking forward to the future of our makerspace and our program. Thank you again so much for having me and for allowing me to record this and present it to you. I'm really sorry I couldn't be in Chicago, and hopefully I can visit another year. Thank you so much.